Good day to each and everyone. I am Sweet Like Mercado and I am from BSN English 1A. So in our discussion, or for this discussion, we will be discussing about the speech, direct and indirect speech. So to dive deeper into our discussion, let me ask you first a question, which is, what is speech in your own perspective? Alright, so if your answer is that speech is an act of expressing or communicating thoughts, feelings, desires, or ideas by articulation of words. So yes, that speech is our common use, or this is daily use with the people that on how they communicate through other person. It is how we um, get information, how to give information by giving our speech. And also, it is very important as a person to communicate with other person. We have the verbal and we have also the written. And this, which is the speech, it is the verbal type of communication. So speech also refers to a formal address or discourse delivered to an audience. It is a talked or public address. Speech also is the vocalized form of human communication. So as what I've said, speech is the human communication. It is a verbal communication in which we communicate through another person. While we have the other aspect of it, which is the written communication. The speech is under through the verbal or vocalized communication. We have four types of purpose of speech. Of course, if we do communicate through our through the other person, we have the purpose of it. So we have is to inform, to instruct, to entertain, and to persuade. So this is the purposes of speech, or this is the purposes and why we do vocalize or communicate through other people. Of course, we have the purposes of it. It's either to inform, to instruct, to entertain, or to persuade. So with this, we have different type of speech. We have the informative speech, demonstrative speech, persuasive speech, and to entertaining speech. So before we go to direct and indirect speech, let me do the honor to discuss to you what is the different types of speech. So let's start from informative speech. So this is a type of speech that provides interesting and useful information to your audience. Some examples of informative speeches are this: a teacher telling students about earthquakes. So it gives information. The teacher gives information about the earthquakes. Second is a student talking about her research. So this student gives information about her or his research. So that is how the informative speech is. You are giving information. As what I am doing right now, I am giving you information about the different type of speech. So it is a informative speech. Second, we have the demonstrative speech. This is a type of speech which including a demonstration of how to do that you are teaching. Some example of demonstrative speeches are this: how to bake a cake. So as we know, if we do search on Google how to bake a cake, it will give you a process. It will give you step 1, step 2, and a step 3. So that is how the demonstrative speech goes. Like for example, step 1, prepare the baking soda or prepare your materials. Like that. So step 2, prepare the wet and liquid materials, or wet and dry materials rather. So, second example is how to write a speech. So this is the demonstrative speech. It gives you the process in how to write a proper speech. That is how the demonstrative speech goes well. Third, we have the persuasive speech. A persuasive speech works to convince people to change in some way. The way they think, the way they do something, or to start doing something that they are not currently doing. Some examples of persuasive speeches are this: improving your health through better eating. So this is a persuasive speech that would persuade you to do something more. Some people may say that this persuasive people may be manipulative people because it manipulates you to do something, or it 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 gives you motivation to do something, or it persuades you to do this something that you are not doing, or it is not, or it is out of your habits. So it is a persuasive speech. It is a persuasive technique that you want this person to do. You need to persuade him or her. Um, number um, Number four, we have the entertaining speech. So this is a type of speech that provides pleasure and enjoyment that make the audience laugh or identify with anecdotal information. For example, how to buy a condom discreetly. So it is an entertaining speech because it keeps you entertained. From it, there is a word from it that that you would surely laugh about it because it's not normal to talk about it, or it's not you know, formal to talk about it. So it gives you laugh, or it makes you laugh, or it gives it entertainment from it. So that is the four types of the speech. The informative speech, the demonstrative speech, persuasive speech, and the entertaining speech. So as you know right now what is speech and the purpose and the types of speech, we will now discuss the direct speech. There are many occasions in which we need to describe an event or action that happened, and very often that includes repeating what someone said. Such occasions can include a social situation, as well as in a work, email, or presentations. In order to describe what people said, there are two different types of speech. We have the direct speech and indirect speech, or what we call reported speech. Direct speech is when we want to describe what someone said. One option is to use direct speech. We use direct speech when we simply repeat what someone says by putting the phrase between speech mark. For instance, Paul came in and said, "I'm really hungry." It is very common to see direct speech used in books or in newspapers or articles. For example, the local MP said, "We plan to make this city a safer place for everyone." As you can see, with direct speech, it is common to use the verb to say or said in the past. But you can also find another verbs used to indicate direct speech, such as ask, reply, and shout. For example, when Mrs. Diaz opened the door, I asked, "Have you seen Reed?" She replied, "No, I haven't seen him since lunchtime." The boss was angry and shouted, "Why isn't he here? He hasn't finished that report yet." So, as you can see, the direct speech is when we use a phrase between the speech marks. So we see this from articles, newspapers. We use this speech marks for identify that this phrase is belong to someone else. This is the correct phrase or the right phrase that has been used or that has been speeched by someone else. So in direct speech, we give acknowledgement through the person that been said to that phrase. So if that person has said to that phrase, then we give acknowledgments from it. Indirect speech, that's why we use a speech mark between the phrase. So let's move on to indirect speech. So when we want to report what someone said without speech marks and without necessarily using exactly the same words, we can use indirect speech, or it is also called a reported speech. For example, direct speech is We're quite cold in here. So if we transcript it into indirect speech, they say that they are cold. That is how it is if it is indirect. When we report what someone says in the present simple, as in the above sentence, we normally don't change the tense. We simply change the subject. However, when we report things in the past, we usually change the tense by moving it one step back. For example, in the following sentences, the present simple becomes the past simple in the indirect speech. For instance, direct speech is I have a new car. And indirect speech, it would be he said he had a new car. All the other tenses follow a similar change in indirect speech using say or thou. So as we know that, as we observe, if you observe that in indirect speech, we tend to use say, like they say they are cold. They say that they're going to the mall. They say that they will do things like this, or etc. So as an alternative to using say, we can also use tell, told in the past, in reported speech, but in this case, you need to add the object pronoun. For example, he told me he was going to Avalon. They told her they would arrive a little late. You told us you'd already finished the order. You can't change to tell through past tense, which is the told. In indirect speech also, it is important by changing the time expressions. Sometimes, it is necessary to change the time expression when you report something, especially when you are speaking about the past and the time reference no longer applies. Now, the report here is not like you're reporting something, huh? The report here is like you are doing the direct speech through indirect speech. For instance, direct speech we have, I am seeing my brother tomorrow. And indirect speech, she said she was seeing her brother the following day. So you observe the difference from direct speech and indirect speech by changing the time expression. Here are some other examples or more examples to for you to observe the differences from direct speech and indirect speech. Direct speech, I had a headache yesterday. And indirect, it will be you said you'd had a headache the day before yesterday. So you see the difference by changing the time expression. And in direct speech, it's been raining since this afternoon. And indirect speech, he said it's been raining since that afternoon. In direct speech, I haven't seen them since last week. And in direct speech, she said she hadn't seen them since the previous week. So now we've discussed how we use direct and indirect speech. I suggest that we need to practice using them yourself. An excellent and easy way to see how they are used is by reading a short story in English or a news article online, because stories and articles contain many examples of a direct and indirect speeches. So I hope you have gained lesson from my discussion from speech, direct speech, and indirect speech. So the only thing that you master it by is by using it, or by adopting it into your daily life. So again, my name is Sweet Lego Mercado from Visiting English 1A. Hi.